Have you ever tried growing your own houseplants from bulbs? That's exactly what we're going to try in this video today. We've got 3 different varieties of Caladiums that we've purchased from a company called Farmer Gracy. So we'll be talking about how to prepare them for potting them up, as well as talking about the aftercare and what you can do to see them through dormancy in the winter so that you can get foliage year after year with your Caladiums. So the varieties that we've got the Caladium Rosebud, or Caladium Rosebud, however you choose to pronounce it. I personally think it's Caladium based on the spelling, but I have heard it be called Caladium, so whatever you choose to pronounce it as. So this is the Caladium Rosebud. Then we've got the Caladium Candidum here. So this is a good sized bulb as well, quite a few growing points on here. You can see there's a really prominent one there as well. So that should produce some nice green and white foliage. The rosebud produces sort of a mix of green, red and white foliage. And then finally this large one that we showed you previously is the Caladium sizzle. So this will produce really vibrant red leaves. So together they should work really well together and provide that contrast between the red and the white. So they might look a little bit strange if you're not used to handling bulbs. If you've ever grown any in the garden, you might think they're a little bit similar to those. These are technically corms rather than bulbs, so you can Google what the difference is if you want to find out more. It's quite biological or botanical, so do give that a read if you do want to learn more about the difference. For ease of reference, we're probably just going to end up calling these bulbs, just because we're in the habit of doing so. So just an overview of what the bulb looks like there. So this one's got 2 growing points. As you can see, there's sort of 2 rounded areas and the growing points on top, so that's where the plants will come out. And on the underside you'll notice that it's flatter, so this is a really good way to tell which way that you need to plant the bulb once it's in the soil. So obviously you want the flat side down and the growing points up so that the leaves can grow up and out of the soil. Sometimes, depending on the size of the bulb, this can be quite difficult to tell which way round it is. So this one's another one. This one's slightly larger, but as you'll see, the underside is still a little bit knobbly there. But if you just look out for the growing points, as you can see there's one sort of lighter coloured one there, you'll notice that that is the way that you need to plant the bulb once it's in the soil. So before you plant your bulbs, give consideration as to what type of plant that you're after. Are you after a plant with large stems and leaves, but maybe fewer of them, or do you want a plant that fills out the pot that has lots of leaves but are perhaps smaller stems and leaves in the pot? And that's where a process called De-Eying comes into the preparation before you plant it. So if you are after a set of larger leaves, larger stems and leaves, then just plant this as it is in the soil and they will come out from these 2 main growing points that we showed you earlier, here and here. If you are after that sort of fuller plant but with perhaps smaller leaves, then what you can do is a process called De-Eying, which is where you would actually cut these off of the bulb, and then this should promote the growth of secondary shoots around the bulb. So you'll get, rather than just these 2 sort of main ones, you'll get multiple shoots coming off this with those extra leaves there. So it might depend on the size of bulb that you've got. So this one's only got 2 growing points. This is fairly small. So what I might do with this one is de-eye this one just to promote the additional growth of extra leaves, so this fills out the pot. However, if you have a larger bulb, then you might find that you've actually got more growing points on it, so you might decide to leave the eyes as they are, as there'll be plenty and you'll get the larger leaves that fill out the pot anyway. So with this one, this is a different one. This little bit broke off, which isn't a problem. That'll plant fine on its own, or if we wanted to, we could plant it separately, but we'll keep them together to fill the pot out. So this one's got about 5 or 6 points. So there's perhaps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, and there's one around the back here as well. So this one we'll leave as is. We won't de-eye it, and hopefully this will produce large stems, large leaves, and because there's so many of them, it'll fill out the pot as it is. And it'll be really interesting to see between the 2, the one that we de-eye and the one that we don't, what the difference is with the leaf size. So we'll probably cover that in a future video. So as we mentioned before, with this smaller one with just the 2 main growing points there, what we're going to do is we're going to de-eye this one first before we plant it. So all you do is take a knife and remove them gently from the top of the bulb. So that's 1 and 2, almost 2. So once they're removed, give it a day or two to let that callus over and dry out, and then you can plant them up. Try not to plant them straight away, as you don't want anything, if there's anything in the soil or sort of moisture, too much moisture getting in there and then rotting the bulb. So we'll leave that out to air and dry and callus over, and then we'll plant this in a couple of days. For the one that we said we weren't going to de-eye, which is here with the many main growing points, we're just going to plant this as it is, so we'll show you how to do that next. As we mentioned, it's a lot easier than you might think. So we've just got a pot large enough for the bulb. So I believe this is a 14 or a 15 centimetre pot, and that's about 6 inches wide across the top and a good depth to it. So when you're planting the bulbs, you want to plant them about 5 to 10 centimetres or 2 to 4 inches. So not actually that far down, which is why they probably do so well as houseplants, because they can fit really well in reasonably sized pots as this. So we've got fresh soil in there, which we've filled part way, and we'll put the bulb in there in a second. We've got some additional soil here just to top it up once we've got the bulb in. And it's really straightforward. So it's just a case of making a space in the soil and then placing the bulb, as we mentioned, making sure that it's the right way round. So that's the bottom and this is the top, as we've got the growing points here, and placing that in the centre of the pot, so that then when it grows out, it'll hopefully fill out the pot. And then this is the one that also broke a little bit, so we're going to put that extra piece in there, as well as making sure that it's the right way round. So as you can see, the bulb's nestled in there in the soil, and now all we're going to do is just top that up with more fresh soil until it's covered, and then we'll give it a water. So that's the Caladium bulb potted up there. We'll give it a water and keep the soil moist, and that should then promote the growth of all those shoots on that bulb. We'll also need to keep it at a consistently warm temperature, so Caladiums like a range of around 20 degrees, give or take a couple of degrees either way, so that seems to be the optimum temperature for them. As it's the summer, or coming up to the summer, and we're planting these indoors, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. The house is generally that temperature. If you have a house that fluctuates in temperature in different rooms, maybe find somewhere that catches the sun, somewhere that is a warm spot. Alternatively, you could put them on things like appliances. If you've got space on top of your fridge or freezer, that will provide consistent warmth. You can even buy heat mats for sometimes sold as dual purpose, either pets or for propagation, but they do the same thing. They provide sort of a flat layer of heat that you can then put plants on. So if that's something that might be beneficial if you have a particularly cold house, or maybe you're planting these earlier, for example in the spring, then you might benefit from something like that, and you can just purchase those online. So give it a water, keep it moist, keep it at a consistently warm temperature, and then be patient. So it can take quite a few weeks for the shoots to grow. So we'll just keep an eye on this, and we'll provide an update once they start to grow. So once you start to see growth and the leaves start to appear, then look after it in much the same way. Keep the soil moist. You can allow the top of the soil to dry slightly between waterings, just don't allow the whole plant to dry out completely. Keep it in a warm spot. As we've said, it shouldn't be an issue if you're keeping it as a house plant. Although they do like warmth, they don't like direct sunlight. They're actually shade-loving plants, so try to set it back somewhere in indirect light, or maybe amongst the rest of your plant collection, so that they're a little bit sheltered away from the light, as direct sunlight can actually cause burning to the leaves, which you'll notice once they grow, the leaves are very delicate. The benefit of also putting them with other houseplants as well, you'll have the wonderful contrast of the colours of the Caladium leaves against your other plants, but also the additional humidity of being in a collective with the rest of the plant should support those delicate leaves and prevent any crisping from occurring. So as Caladiums are foliage heavy plants, they will benefit from a plant feed occasionally. Use an all-purpose plant feed every 4 weeks or every month. Use this only during the active growing period, so spring and summer. Once they start to show signs of dormancy, then just like you would with your watering, you'd reduce the frequency of using plant feed until you come to a complete stop. So in the autumn, you will notice that the growth starts to slow down and leaves will start to die back. This is just a natural process where the bulbs start to go into dormancy. As you'll see, these are dormant. They've been grown previously, but then gone dormant over winter, and now they're ready to pot up again. So when you notice the growth slowing and the leaves dying back, all you need to do is just reduce your watering until you come to a complete stop, and allow the soil in the pot to dry out completely. If there are any remaining leaves, you can just remove those and then place this into storage somewhere out of sight in a cool, dry area over winter, and then you can bring it back out in spring. If you do decide to dig them up, for example, if you wanted to then pop them up in a different pot or rearrange them, put them together, or maybe even separate them if the bulbs are growing quite a lot of offsets, then you can also do that. So all you do is follow the same process. So you can stop watering, allow it to dry out, and then dig the bulb up, remove any remaining leaves. Leave these out in an airy place for about 1 to 2 weeks to dry out, and then you can store them in a dry place, maybe in a paper bag, in sawdust, or in dry sand, for example, just to keep the moisture away so these stay dry over winter. And then when spring comes around again, that's when you can put these back in soil and follow the process that we spoke about throughout this video to get them growing again. So one of the main benefits of growing plants from bulbs is that it's actually cheaper to add them to your collection. These cost between £2.50 and £4, and if you were buying them elsewhere, I mean, you could pay up to perhaps £6. Many places do them in bundles for a discounted price. So if I were buying these as established plants, I'd maybe pay £10 to £15 for a small caladium and up to £25 for a larger caladium. So this is a really great way to add them to your plant collection for less. You've also got the satisfaction of seeing those wonderfully colourful leaves grow and sort of fill out the pot and brighten up your room, knowing that you've grown it from this weird looking little bulb here. So I hope you found this video useful in showing you how you can grow your own houseplants from bulbs with the example of caladiums, and also showing you how to care for them throughout the season and then look after them during the winter period so that you can have that amazing foliage return year after year. If you've given this a go previously with caladiums or other bulbs that you can grow as houseplants, then share below in the comments what you've tried and how you got on. We'd love to hear about it. If you've got any questions, put those in the comments below too, and we'll respond to everyone. If you'd like to see more content like this, and we'll shortly be doing a video on planting colocasia bulbs as well, please do hit the subscribe button, and we'll have new videos every week, usually on a Saturday. As always, thank you for watching Grow Your Wellbeing.